It's my second Sunday with servers. I'm still pleased as punch. I have to tell you, just briefly, they're good. I told the young man there, who's heading back to his seat, I said, if something goes wrong, I'll just nod to you and you come to me. Well, I normally nod my head at the name of Mary, and I had forgotten, well, sometimes I over-exaggerate, it just sort of happens. And I turned my head towards the statue, and I nodded my head, and immediately I was like, oh, no. It wasn't his fault. He was doing exactly what I told him to do. Very well done. His eyes never left me. Good kid. Praise God. What does that have to do with this reading? These readings, rather. They're some of my favorites, too. Holy smokes. I swear, please God, I'll try not to make it overly long, but these are really some of my favorites. I know, right? Uh-oh. Has to do with eye contact. Has to do with looking at each other. Human beings are very fascinating. We're very good with hand-eye coordination, aiming at targets. Sets us above so many other animals. It's really incredible. I'm not a big fan of baseball, but it's a rather impressive sport. Throwing something at a high rate of speed, somebody tracking that as best they can, and then able to connect with it over a very small distance. This young man, he runs up to Jesus Christ. What does it say? He knelt down before him. It's a sign of homage. He has amazing respect for this carpenter's son. And then he asks him the question. He says, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Rich, young, idealistic, maybe a touch naive. And he sees in this man everything he wants to follow. He also perhaps sees in him someone who can give him praise, someone who can affirm him. And the Savior asks him an interesting question. And at first, because of our minds, we're always taught that, to be humble is to claim that you're not good. It's not what Jesus Christ is doing here. He says, why do you call me good? Only God is good. He doesn't deny that he's good. He's implying something. He's keeping the messianic secret still, but he's calling him to consider who it is he's kneeling before. He's trying to brush away some of that naivete. And then he says, you know the commandments. He lists them. And the boy says, I keep them. He says, yes, I'm in. Look at me, what's not to like, kind of thing. And here's the line. Jesus looked at him, loved him, and said to him, you are lacking one thing. And now he's got eye contact, clearly. And when you're looking at another person, you're exposed. That's why people lower their head when they hear something they don't like, because they don't want to be hurt by it too much. If somebody's failing in a role or a conversation, people look away. Shunning, turn your back on them. But when you're 100% engaged, you're focused on them. You're watching the slightest head nod, the shift of the eyes, the raising of the eyebrows, the curving of the lips. And he says hard words. He says, go, sell everything you have. That's what you're lacking? You don't have nothing yet. Give it up. And you will have treasure in heaven. Then you come and you follow me. That's an amazing invitation. Many times people have come to Jesus Christ and said, Lord, I'll follow you anywhere. But first, let me bury my father. Or, first let me... And he says, no. He says, birds have nests, foxes have dens, kingdom man has nowhere to lay his head. You let the dead bury the dead. You If you're going to follow me, you follow me. You don't put any sort of clause on that. And then there's the demoniac who he frees. And he says, can I come with you? And he says, absolutely not. He says, you go back home. You tell him what happened, but you're not coming with me. Not yet, anyways. And here he says, you can come with me. But you got to drop everything and come with me. And the kid does drop something. It's his gaze. His face fell. He can't take it. There is always sacrifice required in love. Always. Always. And it's not that this kid doesn't love, but he doesn't love enough. Not yet, anyways. And the kid gets up and he goes away. And Jesus Christ turns around and he tells everyone how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. How hard it is to swim when you're wearing 50 pounds of gear. They teach you in the Army, they taught me at my school anyways, you jump into the water, you're wearing body armor and equipment, and you sink like a stone, and you go down. And then you hit bottom, and you ditch everything. Because you ain't coming back up wearing that stuff. And then you can come up and take a breath. But you will not make it back out of that pool, without, of course, your instructor coming in after you. That's not going to end well for you. But you're not coming back up out of that pool unless you get your equipment off. It takes courage. It takes self-control, discipline. And then you can come up and take a breath. And then the interesting thing is they make you go back down to the pool and go get it. Another lesson. It's wonderful. That's how God is. That's exactly how God is. Peter, again, they're so braggadocious. I feel that Jesus cuts him off early here before he can embarrass himself and ask the question, what's in it for us? It says, Peter began to say to him, we have given up everything and followed you. And Jesus says, oh, stop. He says, amen, I say to you. Let me just tell you what's on your heart. There is no one who has given up house or brothers, who has given up everything, who will not get it back 100 times in this life. My brothers and sisters, I am a priest. I set aside a lot of different futures, a lot of different options. I minister to thousands of families. You all welcome me into your homes. I have more food in that rectory than I could possibly eat. It's terrible. It's delicious, by the way. It's ridiculous almost. It's a great gift. I don't do it so that I can have a room full of food or I can walk into your houses or anything like that. That's not why I did it. I set everything down because I could see him. I could feel his gaze. And I had turned away and I had turned my face down one too many times. I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to look at him. I had to follow him. Don't look away. Because when you gaze on him, I'll take you to the first reading. Again, the Book of Wisdom. I love wisdom literature. It's amazing stuff. It's the shortcut to the mind of God. Speaking with the voice of Solomon, it says, I prayed and prudence was given me, the ability to know what the right thing to do at the right time and the right way is. It's not always right to ditch all your possessions and your house and then go join a monastic order. It might be. But what does prudence tell you? In general, if you're married, don't abandon your wife and children in your house. The bishop will not take you. He will call the police. But prudence, the shortcut to God. What does he want me to do right now with what I have? And you begin to conform your life to that. And since we're talking about riches, it says, I liken this wisdom, this knowledge of what I am to do and how I am to live, to priceless gems. And all the gold of the world is nothing but sand, and silver but mire. You can keep it If you hold on to it, you'll sink like a stone to the bottom of that pool. You won't be able to swim up if you're clutching it. He says, but wisdom. All good things together came to me in her company. You sacrifice, and you are joined to something greater than yourself, and suddenly all of this other wealth comes in. And as I said, it's not easy. It will cost you something. It'll cost you pride. It'll cost you status. It'll cost you friends. It might cost you family. Is it worth it? You come here, as I oftentimes say, you listen to a crazy man rant. What do you think? Is the wisdom of God worth it? Because to listen to his voice is to hear his word, and it's to gaze into his eyes. And that takes me to the second reading. So short, so brief, but I love to quote it so often because it talks about swords. But it's so true. You open up the scriptures, brothers and sisters. You have more wealth than they've ever pulled out of the mines of Nubia. You read the sacred page, and you forget to go to sleep. Because he's talking to you. He's looking at you in those pages. The terrible philosopher Nietzsche said, you stare into the abyss stares back. You gaze into heaven, and God gazes towards you. He didn't say that last part. I'm paraphrasing. But that's the truth. If the abyss is alive in its undeath, how much more so is life in eternal life? And I gazed into those pages, and I still do, and I beg you all to do the same. And don't let your face fall, because some of the words are complicated or heavy, because so many mysteries are revealed. Again, you compare these readings, you set it down, you say they have nothing in common, and then 20 minutes before, it all just starts clicking together, and you think, and you're just in shock. You're lost in the gaze of the lover and the beloved. It says, indeed, the word of God is living and effective, sharper than any two-edged sword, penetrating even between soul and spirit, joints and marrow, able to discern reflections and thoughts of the heart. What does that all mean? Soul and spirit. Soul enlivens the body, but spirit is what calls one above this earthly life. Spirits dwell in heaven. Joints and marrow is self-explanatory, but you feel there's a kind of reaction, a physical reaction, the movements of the heart, and then reflections and thoughts of the heart. They didn't translate the Greek here as well as I don't speak Greek, what do I know? They thought it was a good explanation, but different sources I've read. Reflections is actually more like desires of the heart, like the emotions of the heart. And thoughts is more of what you would think. A mind that's working things out and says, this is what I believe, this is what I love, this is what I hold on to. It can split the nuances down and can tell you just each and every little facet, like a gem catching light. No creature is concealed from him. And here's the coolest part, when God unraveled it all for me. But everything is naked and exposed to the eyes of him to whom we must render account. To the eyes of him. Okay, the Greek here, it's a super intense word, which I can't pronounce because it's in Greek. Tetra something or other. What does it mean? It means your gaze cannot drop. It refers to two things. To a Greek wrestling move where you grab a guy by the throat and he can't break free, he has to look at you. Or to how they would execute prisoners. And when they would march them to the point of execution, they'd keep a knife under his chin so he couldn't drop his gaze in shame to hide himself. He had to always be looking up as they took him to the point of execution. Do you see? Do you see? Don't drop your gaze. God loves us. He looks at us, and we look back, and he asks things of us. And how do we respond to those requests? Jesus Christ lets that man's face fall, and he lets him go away. He doesn't condemn him. The young man will condemn himself. A prisoner condemns himself on that knife should he let his face fall. They don't shove it upwards. He moves his chin down. God doesn't move. God doesn't change. He calls. He cajoles. He offers. And they say, this is hard. And he says, that's okay. He says, because if you've got me, you have everything. Nothing is impossible for God. Nothing. And oh, what incredible lives he calls you each to. What an incredible adventure it is to be married, or to be a priest, or to be a religious, or to serve him in some far-off land that he's called you to preach his name in. Gaze upon him. Set your heart upon him. Like a great jeweler who refined that heart into an amazing gem. And that flame of the Spirit will shine within it and light up the world. Oh, how we miss Mother Teresa. How we miss John Paul the Great. 2 lives. Everything given over to him. And they filled the world with hope and made the soul sparkle. The potential that was in them is in you and in me. We go to the bottom of the pool. It's scary down there. You can feel the world trying to choke you. All you have to do is whatever the instructor told you. And then you can come up through the waters and breathe. How good the air tastes. That's what it's like, living the Christian life, dying to yourself, and then being born into eternal life. Easy? No. Worth it? Oh yeah. Don't take your eyes off of him. Do whatever he tells you. Let him fix you with your gaze. Don't do anything that would make you ashamed to lower it. But if you do, there it is. There's the confessional. It'll take the knife out from underneath your chin. And then you'll be able to hold your head up high once more. Child of God. Children, how hard it is to enter the kingdom of God. But he loves us. He waits for us. He calls us. He teaches us. He looks at you and for you. Listen to his word. And you will be richer than you could possibly imagine. God bless you this evening.